Hi, I'm Alison Downham, co-author with Stuart Elden of the Theory, Culture and Society Extended Review paper on Foucault's 1960s lectures on sexuality. I'm Associate Professor of Modern European History at Western Sydney University, a conceptual historian of medicine and sexuality with subspecialization in historical theory and historiography. Stuart is Professor of Political Theory and Geography at the University of Warwick and is author of several intellectual biographies of Foucault. We were both excited to see the 2018 Gallimard Édition du Seuil lecture publication, edited by Claude-Olivier Doron, which provides for the first time a printed and edited rendition of the oral lectures which Foucault gave at the University of Clermont-Ferrand and at the University of Vincennes between 1964 and 1969. The edition has been made from Foucault's own lecture notes, drawing on additional archival materials housed in the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, and provides copious editorial contextualization and discussion of the major themes contained in the lectures. Our paper evaluates the editorial approach taken by Doron, but it also considers how the themes which Foucault elaborates in these lectures bear upon his published work on the history of sexuality. We propose that this set of lectures, along with the recent edition of the unfinished fourth volume of the History of Sexuality, invite a deeper appreciation of Foucault's unique historical perspective and of the complex array of intellectual influences that informed it. Up until this publication, most of the resources available for understanding Foucault's work on the history of sexuality have come from the 1970s and 80s, and this volume provides a new window on his approach from the early period before his appointment to the Collège de France at the end of 1969. In particular, these lectures show very clearly that Foucault engaged deeply with biological research on sexual reproduction, and that he envisaged the study of sexuality in history as a very specific kind of investigation into the practices of scientific discourse, a historical study of what he called the epistemologization of sexuality, rather than as a form of social constructionist critique or a study of cultural representation, to name just two important trends in the worldwide scholarship on sexuality after Foucault, and with which he is sometimes conflated. In these lectures, Foucault expresses skepticism about the dichotomous view of biology versus culture as a legitimate perspectival frame, and instead positions this dichotomy as one of the very objects of his own historical curiosity. We also spend a bit of time in this essay considering how the themes of Foucault's 1960s lectures relate to the historical scholarship on sexuality and of the sexes, which has unfolded globally since the 1970s, taking our cue from Doron's own efforts to provide precisely this kind of post hoc context. While these considerations don't help us to understand how Foucault himself came to write his epic history of sexuality, they do help us to appreciate the ways in which his work has been so generative for many different kinds of humanistic and social scientific scholars interested in similar themes ever since. Reading this volume does require some existing knowledge of Foucault's published work, and of course requires fluency in French, but the volume is a very worthwhile resource for anyone who wishes to understand better how Foucault's ideas about the historical study of sexuality were formed during this early part of his career, and how his teaching activities may have impacted his development as a scholar. Thank you.